The ship moved through the darkness of space like a silver needle. Inside, Admiral Park Do-hyun stood at the observation window and watched the stars pass by. His uniform was pressed and perfect. His gray hair was cut short. His hands, which had commanded fleets and fought in 3 wars, were folded behind his back. Behind him, Dr. Kim Ji-yeon checked her translation equipment for the 100th time. She was nervous. They all were. This was the moment humanity had waited for since they first looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They were not alone. The galaxy was full of life. And today, humanity would meet the Galactic Council for the first time. Commander Lee Taeson entered the observation room. He was a tall man with a scar on his chin from a battle he never talked about. He stopped beside the Admiral and looked out at the stars. "We arrive in 1 hour," Taeson said. "I know," Do-hyun replied. "Are you ready?" The Admiral was quiet for a moment. "I have prepared for this my entire life. My father prepared for this. His father before him. Generations of humanity have looked at the stars and dreamed of this day." He turned to face his commander. "Ready or not, we go forward." The Council's capital world was called Nexus Prime. It was a planet covered entirely by a single city. Buildings stretched toward the sky like metal forests. Ships flew between towers in streams of light. Billions of beings from 1,000 different species lived and worked there. The human ship landed on a platform reserved for new species. A delegation was waiting for them. The beings were tall and thin, with skin like blue glass and eyes that glowed softly. They were Oranthians, the oldest and most powerful species in the Council. High Arbiter Velith stepped forward. He was ancient, even by Oranthian standards. His movements were slow and careful, like a man carrying something fragile. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," Velith said. His voice was translated by tiny machines that floated in the air. "You are the species called humans, yes?" Admiral Do-hyun bowed his head in respect. "We are. I am Admiral Park Do-hyun. I speak for Earth and all of humanity. We come in peace, seeking friendship and cooperation with the Galactic Council." Ji-yeon translated his words perfectly. She had spent 20 years learning every known alien language. This moment was her life's work. Velith studied the humans with his glowing eyes. His expression did not change. "You will follow me to the Grand Chamber. The Council will hear your petition." They walked through corridors of crystal and light. Beings of every shape and size passed them. Some had wings. Some had tentacles. Some floated in the air or crawled on many legs. Ji-yeon tried to identify each species from her studies. She recognized perhaps half of them. Taeson stayed close to the Admiral. His soldier's eyes watched everything, looking for threats, measuring distances, counting exits. Old habits died hard. The Grand Chamber was enormous. It was a circular room with seats rising in rows toward a distant ceiling. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of species filled those seats. They all turned to look as the humans entered. Admiral Do-hyun walked to the center of the room. A single light shone down on him. He felt very small. High Arbiter Velith took his place on a high platform above the chamber. Other arbiters sat beside him, each from a different founding species of the Council. "The Galactic Council now considers the petition of humanity," Velith announced. His voice echoed through the vast space. "Species designation: human. Origin world: Earth. Sol system. Population: 14 billion. Technological level: recently achieved faster than light travel." The Arbiter paused. He looked down at Admiral Do-hyun. "Before we proceed, the Council has completed its evaluation of your species. We have studied your history, your biology, and your behavior. We have made our judgment." Do-hyun felt his heart beating fast. "We are eager to hear the Council's decision." Veleth's glowing eyes showed nothing. Humanity is classified as a Class 7 predator species. Your biology is based on endurance hunting. You are omnivorous, consuming both plant and animal matter. Your social structure is pack-based, built around tribal loyalty and territorial aggression. The Admiral's hope began to fade. The words did not sound like a welcome. Your history, Veleth continued, shows a species that has never known peace. You have fought wars constantly since your species first developed tools. You have created weapons capable of destroying your own world. You have committed genocide against your own kind multiple times. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Representatives leaned toward each other, speaking in languages Jion could not hear clearly. Based on this evaluation, the Galactic Council has reached a unanimous decision. Admiral Do-yoon stood straight. Whatever came next, he would face it with dignity. Humanity is sentenced to permanent quarantine within your home system. You are forbidden from colonizing other worlds. You are forbidden from trading with Council species. You are forbidden from making contact with any civilization beyond your solar system. Council warships will patrol your borders. Any human vessel attempting to leave will be destroyed. The words hit Do-yoon like physical blows. Beside him, Jiang gasped. Taesun's hands curled into fists. This is the fate of all violent species, Veleth said. You will remain in your cage until evolution changes your nature, or until extinction takes you. This is the judgment of the Galactic Council. It cannot be appealed. For a long moment, Admiral Do-yoon could not speak. He had come here with gifts, with offers of friendship, with hope for a better future. They had sentenced humanity to death. May I speak? He finally asked. Veleth tilted his head. You may. You call us violent. You call us dangerous. Perhaps you are right. We have made terrible mistakes. We have hurt each other in ways that shame us. Do-yoon's voice grew stronger. But we have also loved. We have created beauty. We have looked at our worst moments and chosen to be better. That is what makes us human. Not the violence. The choice to grow beyond it. Veleth listened. His expression did not change. Your words are noted, he said. The judgment stands. Return to your world, humans. The galaxy has no place for you. The journey home was silent. Admiral Do-yoon stood at the observation window and watched the stars he would never reach. Jing sat alone, her translation equipment forgotten beside her. Taesun paced like a caged animal. When they passed the edge of Sol System, Council warships took positions behind them. The cage was already being built. Admiral Do-yoon called his officers together. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with something none of them had seen before. They have judged us, he said quietly. They have sentenced us. They expect us to accept our fate and wait for death. He looked at each of them in turn. We will not accept. We will not wait. They want us to die in darkness. Instead, we will build something in that darkness that will light up the galaxy. No one asked how. No one asked when. They simply nodded. The war for humanity's future had begun. 60 years passed. To the Galactic Council, those years were quiet. Their monitoring stations watched the Sol System and saw nothing unusual. Humans lived on Earth. They spread to Mars and a few moons. They launched no ships beyond their borders. They sent no signals asking for help. The Council believed humanity had accepted its fate. High Arbiter Veleth, now very old but still in power, reviewed the reports each year and nodded with satisfaction. The violent species was contained. The galaxy was safe. The Council saw only what humanity wanted them to see. Deep beneath the frozen surface of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, something extraordinary was happening. A facility carved from ice and stone stretched for kilometers in every direction. Thousands of scientists, engineers, and workers lived there in secret. They called it the Forge. Director Choi Yoon-ho walked through the main laboratory. She was a small woman with short gray hair and eyes that never stopped moving. She had led the Forge for 15 years, taking over from her predecessor, who died of old age still working at her desk. "Show me the new engine," Yoon-ho said, her chief engineer. A young man named Kwon Min-ho led her to a sealed chamber. Inside, floating in a magnetic field, was a device no bigger than a table. It hummed softly with power. "We call it the shadow drive," Min-ho explained. "It works on completely different principles than standard faster-than-light engines. When it activates, it leaves no energy signature, no radiation trail, nothing for the Council's sensors to detect." Yoon-ho studied the device. "You are certain? The Council has been watching us for 60 years. If they detect even one test flight, everything we have built will be destroyed." "We have tested it 7 times, Min-ho said. "Small probes sent to the outer edges of the system. The Council detected nothing." For the first time in months, Director Choi smiled. "Then we are ready for the next phase." Far from Europa, hidden inside a hollowed asteroid in the Kuiper Belt, Admiral Yoon Seo-jin commanded the growing Shadow Fleet. She was the granddaughter of Commander Lee Tae-sun, who had stood beside Admiral Park Do-hyun on that terrible day at the Council. Tae-sun had died 20 years ago, but not before passing his mission to his children and grandchildren. The fleet currently numbered 47 ships. Each one was built from materials mined in secret from asteroids the Council considered worthless. Each one was crewed by volunteers who had said goodbye to their families, knowing they might never see Earth again. Seo-jin stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Silent Hammer, and reviewed the day's reports. 3 new ships had completed construction. 200 more volunteers had arrived from Earth, smuggled out in cargo containers marked as waste disposal. The training program for new pilots was ahead of schedule. Admiral, her communications officer, called out, "Message from the Forge. Director Choi says the shadow drives are ready for fleet installation." Seo-jin closed her eyes for a moment. 60 years of preparation. 60 years of secrecy. 60 years of teaching their children to smile at the stars while hiding the fire in their hearts. "Tell the director we will begin immediately," she said. "It is time to leave our cage." On Earth, in a university basement in Seoul, Professor Baek Hyun-woo worked on a different kind of project. He was not building ships or weapons. He was building a civilization. The old professor sat surrounded by screens filled with data, maps, population projections, resource calculations, government structures. He called it the Dominion Protocol, a complete plan for how humanity would organize itself among the stars. His assistant, a young woman named Shin Yuri, brought him tea. "Professor, you have been working for 18 hours. You need to rest." Hyun-woo shook his head. "The first colony ships launch in 3 months. Everything must be ready. Every detail must be perfect." "What detail are you working on now?" "The question of capital," the professor said. "Every empire in history has had a capital, a center, a heart. And every empire in history has fallen when enemies struck that heart." He pointed at his screens. "The human dominion will have no capital, no single center of power. Every colony will be independent. Every world will be self-sufficient. If the Council finds and destroys one, the others will survive. They will never be able to cut off our head because we will have no head to cut." Yuri looked at the complex diagrams. "It sounds lonely. All those worlds separated by light years, each one on its own." "Not on its own," Hyun-woo corrected gently. "Connected by shared purpose, by shared history, by the shared knowledge that they are all children of Earth, surviving in a galaxy that wanted them dead. He smiled at her. Loneliness requires forgetting where you come from. We will never forget. The first colony fleet launched on a night with no moon. 12 ships carrying 50,000 people slipped past the Council's patrols like ghosts. They traveled for months through the darkness between stars, their shadow drives leaving no trace. The Vega system was 25 light years from Earth. The Council had surveyed it centuries ago and marked it as worthless. The planets were too cold, the asteroids too scattered, the radiation too high for comfortable habitation. Humans were not looking for comfort. The colony ship, Eternal Hope, entered orbit around the fourth planet. Captain Ruji Wan looked down at a world of ice and stone and smiled. "We named this world New Bizon," she announced to her crew. "Let us build our future." Within a year, the first domes rose on New Bizon's surface. Within 5 years, the population had doubled from births and new arrivals. Within 10 years, New Bizon was exporting food and materials to 12 other colony worlds. Each colony had the same story. Humans landed on worlds the Council considered worthless. They dug into frozen ground. They built habitats in poisonous atmospheres. They farmed in soil that had never known life. They did impossible things because they had no choice but to do impossible things. The children born on these worlds grew up different from their Earth ancestors. They knew nothing of blue skies or open oceans. They knew only metal walls and recycled air and the vast darkness of space. But they also knew something else. They knew they were part of humanity's greatest adventure. They knew the Council had condemned their grandparents to death, and their grandparents had chosen life instead. They knew that every breath they took, every child they raised, every city they built was a victory against those who had dismissed humanity as worthless. Director Choi Yun-ha died at the age of 91. Still working in the forge, Admiral Yoon Seo-jin retired at 70, passing command to officers she had trained herself. Professor Baek Hyun-woo lived long enough to see his Dominion Protocol adopted by 30 different worlds before passing peacefully in his sleep. A new generation took their places. And then another. And another. 60 years after the Council's judgment, humanity had spread to over 40 star systems. Their ships flew unseen through the darkness. Their colonies grew in silence. Their population numbered in the billions. And still, the Council saw nothing. On Nexus Prime, High Arbiter Velith read his annual report on the Sol System quarantine. Human population was stable. No unauthorized transmissions detected. No escape attempts recorded. The violent species was behaving itself. Everything was under control. Velith did not know that in the darkness between the stars, humanity was building something that would shake the foundations of his ancient civilization. He would learn. But not yet. Not for many more years. The quiet decades continued, and humanity grew stronger with every passing day. The human dominion stretched across 340 star systems. It was the year 2487, 140 years since the Council had sentenced humanity to die in a cage. The cage was empty now. The bird had flown. Chancellor Song Mai-rae governed the Dominion from the mobile capital ship Everward. The ship was enormous, large enough to hold a city of 200,000 people. It never stayed in one system for long. It moved constantly, visiting colonies, attending councils, staying one step ahead of anyone who might want to find it. Mai-rae was 63 years old. Her hair was silver, her back was straight, and her voice could silence a room full of arguing politicians with a single word. She had been elected Chancellor 7 years ago, the 7th person to hold the title since the Dominion's founding. Unlike the Council's High Arbiter, who held power for life, Dominion Chancellors served for 10 years and then stepped aside for fresh leadership. Today, Mai-rae was meeting with her senior advisors in the Everward's war room. The walls showed maps of Dominion space and the surrounding regions. Dr. Han, report on the bioforming project, Myray said. Dr. Han Jiansu stood. He was a thin man with thick glasses and hands stained green from his work with plants. Chancellor, we have successfully bioformed 17 new worlds in the past 5 years. Our engineered organisms can now transform a dead planet into a living one in 30 to 50 years, depending on conditions. The Council takes 5,000 years to terraform a single world, Admiral Kang Yuna noted. She was the commander of the Defense Collective, the Dominion's military. They use machines and chemicals. They force the planet to change. We convince the planet to change itself. Nature is always more efficient than machines, Junsu agreed. We work with life, not against it. Myray nodded. And our population? 17 billion across all colonies, her population minister reported. Growth rate remains steady. We project 30 billion within 20 years. 30 billion humans living on worlds the Council had declared worthless. Myray allowed herself a small smile. Her grandmother had been born on New Bizin, in a dome that held barely 1,000 people. Now New Bizin had 300 million citizens and oceans that stretched from pole to pole. There is another matter, Admiral Kang said. Her voice was careful. Our scouts have discovered something in the Thornwood Nebula. Myray raised an eyebrow. Show me. The wall screens changed to show a dying star system. Radiation levels were extreme. No Council species could survive there without heavy protection. But the scanners showed life signs. They call themselves the Morthekine, Kang explained. They are a silicon-based species. They were outlawed by the Council 800 years ago. Their crime was existing in a form the Council found disturbing. Silicon-based, Myray repeated. They can survive in environments that would kill carbon-based life. Exactly. They fled to places even we cannot reach. But their home in the Thornwood Nebula is dying. The radiation is increasing. In 50 years, they will be extinct. Myray studied the screens for a long moment. How many of them are there? Approximately 3 million survivors. 3 million beings, slowly dying in a radioactive wasteland because an ancient government had decided they looked wrong. Contact them, Myray ordered. Tell them the human dominion offers sanctuary. We will find them a new home. Admiral Kang hesitated. Chancellor, the Council may learn of this. If they discover we are sheltering outlawed species, then let them discover it. Murray's voice was firm. The Council threw humanity into the darkness. We found others in that darkness. We will not leave them there. The Morthekine accepted the offer. They settled on a world called Forge's Heart, a planet of volcanic rock and extreme temperatures that humans found uncomfortable but Morthekine found perfect. Within years, their engineers were revolutionizing Dominion construction techniques. Their silicon-based minds thought differently than human minds, solving problems humans had struggled with for generations. They were not the only ones who found sanctuary. The Tazari were a telepathic species who had refused to submit to the Council's mandatory genetic standardization program. They believed their telepathy was sacred, a gift from their ancestors that should not be altered by outside hands. For this, they had been outlawed. When Dominion scouts found them hiding in a system of rogue planets, the Tazari were starving. Their numbers had fallen from billions to mere thousands. They expected the humans to turn them over to the Council or simply leave them to die. Instead, Chancellor Myray personally traveled to meet them. You are the humans, the Tazari elder said. Her name was untranslatable, so humans called her grandmother voice. We have heard stories of your kind. The Council calls you monsters. The Council calls anyone they fear monsters, Myray replied. What does the Council call you? Grandmother Voice's eyes were sad. Abominations, corruptions, threats to genetic purity. And what do you call yourselves? We call ourselves the Tasari. We call ourselves survivors. Myre smiled. Then we have something in common. The Tasari joined the Dominion. Their telepathic abilities improved communication across the vast distances between colonies. More importantly, their presence proved something that humanity had always believed, but now could demonstrate. The Council's judgments were not justice. They were fear wearing the mask of justice. Word spread through the galaxy's underground networks. The forgotten, the abandoned, the outlawed. They whispered to each other about a place called Sanctuary, where species the Council had condemned could live without hiding. Some of them found their way to Dominion space. Some brought nothing but themselves. Some brought skills and knowledge that enriched the Dominion beyond measure. All of them brought the same thing, proof that the galaxy was full of civilizations who had been wronged. Of course, the Dominion's growth could not remain secret forever. High Arbiter Veleth was ancient now, kept alive by medical technology that should have let him die centuries ago. He reviewed reports from across the galaxy with eyes that still glowed but had grown dim with age. There are gaps, he told his council. Resources vanishing from systems we marked as worthless. Energy signatures that appear and disappear. Rumors of ghost ships in dead space. Smugglers, one of his advisors suggested. Criminal elements exploiting regions we do not patrol. Perhaps. Veleth was not convinced. Increased surveillance in the outer regions. I want answers. Council patrol ships began appearing in areas they had ignored for centuries. They found nothing, of course. The Dominion shadow drives left no trace. But the patrols themselves were a warning sign. Chancellor Myre called an emergency meeting of all Dominion leaders. The wall screens showed representatives from hundreds of worlds, their faces serious. The Council is looking for us, Myre announced. Not yet in earnest, but their attention is turning toward the darkness. We have perhaps 10 years, perhaps 20, before they find us. We should strike first, one military commander argued. Destroy their patrol ships before they can report back. And confirm their suspicions? Admiral Kang shook her head. The moment we attack Council ships, they will know something is out here. They will send everything they have. Then what do we do? A colony governor asked. Myre looked at the map of Dominion space. 340 star systems. 17 billion humans and millions of allied species. Ships, factories, farms, cities, families, everything they had built could be destroyed if the Council came in force. They were powerful, but not powerful enough. Not yet. We prepare, Myre said quietly. We build. We strengthen. And when they find us, we will show them what humanity has become. She straightened in her chair, looking at each representative in turn. The Council thinks they sentenced us to death. Instead, they gave us a purpose. Every year they left us alone was a year we grew stronger. Every species they outlawed became our ally. Every world they ignored became our home. She stood. When the Council finally comes, they will not find frightened refugees begging for mercy. They will find the human Dominion. They will find sanctuary. They will find something their ancient laws and comfortable certainties cannot destroy. The representatives began to applaud. It started slowly, then grew louder, spreading from screen to screen until the sound filled the war room. Chancellor Song Myre did not smile. The war was coming. She could feel it approaching like a storm on the horizon. But humanity had survived worse. They would survive this too. They had no other choice. Commander Thexus of the Salkari species had served the Galactic Council for 300 years. He had commanded patrol fleets, investigated anomalies, and hunted criminals across 1,000 star systems. Nothing surprised him anymore until Today, his investigation fleet of 12 warships had been sent to explore reports of strange activity in what Council maps called the Dead Reach. It was a region of sparse stars and barren worlds, too far from major trade routes to matter. The Council had ignored it for millennia. "Commander," his sensor officer called out, "we are detecting artificial structures ahead." "What kind of structures?" "Unknown. They are large. Very large." Thexis leaned forward in his command chair. His scales rippled with anticipation. This was what he lived for: mystery, discovery, adventure. "Take us in." Slowly, the fleet moved forward. The Dead Reach was dark, with few stars to provide light. But as they approached their destination, Thexis began to see lights. Millions of them. Billions. By the Founders, his sensor officer whispered that it was a planet. A living planet, covered in cities that glowed like rivers of fire against the darkness. Orbital platforms surrounded it like a crown of metal and light. Ships moved between the platforms in steady streams. "How many ships?" Thexis demanded. "I count over 300 warships in defensive positions. There appear to be thousands more in the orbital docks." 300 warships. The Council had sent him with 12. Scan the population. Approximately 15 billion life forms on the planet's surface. The majority appear to be. "Commander, this cannot be right." "Report." "The majority appear to be human." Thexis felt his blood run cold. Humans, the violent species quarantined in the Sol system for over a century. The species that was supposed to be slowly dying in its cage, waiting for extinction. "This is impossible," he said. "There must be some mistake." A new voice filled his bridge. It was translated by his ship's computers, but he could hear the steel behind the words. "There is no mistake, Commander Thexis. You have entered human dominion space. I am Fleet Admiral O. Jinsu. State your intentions." On the planet below, which the humans called Hanum Prime, Admiral O stood in his command center and watched the Council ships on his screens. He was a patient man. He had been waiting for this moment for 30 years. Behind him, his staff worked at their stations with calm efficiency. They had trained for this scenario hundreds of times. Every person in the room knew their role. "The Council ships are holding position," his tactical officer reported. "They appear to be scanning us." "Let them look," O said. "Let them see everything." Commander Thexis gathered his thoughts. His mission was to investigate. He had found something far beyond anything he had expected. His duty was clear. "Admiral O," he transmitted, "you and your people are in violation of Galactic Council Directive 7742. You were sentenced to remain within your home system. This colony is illegal. Your ships are illegal. Your presence here is an act of defiance against the lawful authority of the Council." "We are aware of what the Council thinks of us," O replied calmly. "Then you know what I must do. In the name of the Galactic Council, I demand your immediate surrender. Your ships will stand down. Your population will be relocated to the Sol system. Your leaders will face judgment for their crimes." There was a pause. When Admiral O spoke again, his voice carried no anger, only certainty. "You have 12 ships, Commander. I have 300 in immediate range and 1,000 more within calling distance. Beyond that, I have 50 orbital defense platforms, each armed with weapons you have never seen. And behind all of that, I have 15 billion people who would rather die than return to the cage you built for us." O leaned toward his communication screen, looking directly into the camera. "We will not surrender. We will not relocate. We will not beg for mercy from those who condemned us to extinction. You may return to your masters and tell them what you have found. Or you may stay and learn what happens when you threaten the human dominion. The choice is yours." Commander Thexis was a soldier. He had fought in wars before. He knew when he was outmatched, but he was also proud. The Solkari did not flee from lesser species. And surely, these were still just humans. Violent, yes. Aggressive, yes. But still primitive. Still young. All ships, he commanded, prepare for combat. We will teach these humans that the Council is not to be defied. His fleet moved forward. The human ships did not move. They simply waited. The battle began with Council energy weapons lighting up the darkness between stars. Beams of concentrated power streaked toward the human lines, powerful enough to cut through any known armor. The human ships moved like dancers. They flowed around the beams with impossible grace, their engines burning in patterns no Council species had ever seen. And then they returned fire. Human weapons were different. They did not use the clean energy beams that Council species had perfected over millennia. Instead, they launched physical projectiles accelerated to a fraction of light speed. Chunks of metal moving so fast they could not be tracked by sensors. 3 Council ships were destroyed in the first exchange. Their shields, designed to stop energy weapons, did nothing against the kinetic impacts. Commander Thexis watched in horror as his fleet came apart around him. These were not the primitive humans he had studied in history files. These were warriors who had spent a century preparing for this exact fight. All ships retreat. He ordered. Fall back. Fall back. Only 5 ships escaped. Admiral, I'll let them go. He could have destroyed them all, but he wanted witnesses. He wanted the Council to see exactly what humanity had become. The news reached Nexus Prime within weeks. High Arbiter Veleth watched the recordings from Commander Thexis' surviving ships in shocked silence that stretched across continents. Fleets that numbered in the thousands. Weapons that the Council had never imagined. And humans. Billions of humans living on a world that should not exist. Governed by a civilization that should be impossible. How? Veleth whispered. We watched them. We monitored them. How did they build this without our knowledge? No one could answer him. Chancellor Song Murray's message arrived 3 days later. It was broadcast on every frequency the Council used, reaching every species in the galaxy at the same time. 140 years ago, the Galactic Council sentenced humanity to extinction. We were called violent. We were called dangerous. We were told to remain in our cage and wait for death. Murray's face was calm, her voice steady. We did not wait. We did not die. We built. The message showed images of Dominion worlds. Green planets that had once been barren. Cities rising from frozen moons. Ships filling the space between stars. Today, the human dominion stands as proof that your judgment was wrong. We are not the monsters you feared. We are survivors. We are builders. We are guardians for every species the Council has abandoned and forgotten. Murray's expression hardened. We seek no war with the Council. We have no desire to conquer or destroy. But we will never again ask permission to exist. We will never again accept the judgment of those who condemned us without trial. We are the human dominion, and we are here to stay. The message ended. The galaxy was silent. Then, slowly, something remarkable happened. On 100 quarantined worlds, species who had been forgotten began to send messages of their own. They had seen the broadcast. They had seen what humanity had built. And they wanted to know, was there room in this dominion for them? The Uranthians demanded military action. The Solkari counseled caution. Other species argued amongst themselves, some fearful, some hopeful, some simply confused. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Council did not know what to do. And in the darkness between stars, Chancellor Song Murray smiled. The first battle was over, but the war for humanity's future had only just begun. They had shown the galaxy they could fight. Now they would show the galaxy something far more powerful. They would show the galaxy they could lead. The year was 2512. The Galactic Council was dying. Not from war. Not from disease. It was dying because the galaxy no longer believed in it. 12 species had formally requested to leave the Council and join the human dominion. 40 more were negotiating in secret. On quarantine worlds across the galaxy, outlawed species looked toward the stars and spoke the word that had become their hope: sanctuary. High Arbiter Veleth sat alone in his chambers on Nexus Prime. The room was dark, except for the glow of his ancient eyes. He had lived for over 800 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had believed the Council was eternal. He had been wrong. His advisors came to him with their final report. The situation was critical. Either the Council demonstrated its power now, or it would lose control forever. "Assemble the Grand Fleet," Veleth ordered. His voice was tired, but his will remained iron. "Every loyal species. Every warship we can gather. We will end this human rebellion once and for all." The Grand Fleet took 6 months to assemble. When it was complete, it numbered 2,000 warships from every species that still followed the Council. It was the largest military force the galaxy had seen in 10,000 years. Admiral Thexus, now promoted for his experience fighting humans, commanded the fleet. He had spent years studying human tactics. He was ready for them this time. "We will not make the same mistakes," he told his captains. "We will overwhelm them with numbers. We will strike at their colonies simultaneously. We will give them no time to respond." The Grand Fleet entered Dominion space like a wave of steel and fire. Their sensors detected human colonies ahead. Their weapons powered up. Their soldiers prepared for battle. And found nothing. The colonies were empty. The orbital platforms were abandoned. Cities that had held millions were dark and silent. "They have fled," Thexus reported to High Arbiter Veleth. "The humans have retreated before our might." But something did not feel right. Humans did not flee. Their entire history showed they would fight against impossible odds rather than run. So where had they gone? The answer came 3 days later. While the Grand Fleet searched empty Dominion worlds, Dominion shadow fleets struck everywhere else. They appeared without warning in Council supply lines, destroying cargo ships and fuel depots. They broadcast messages to quarantine worlds, offering freedom to any species willing to rise up. They attacked Council military bases, not to conquer, but to demonstrate that the Council could not protect its own territory. Supreme Commander No Hesu coordinated the campaign from the mobile command ship Silent Thunder. She was a third-generation Dominion citizen, born on a world called New Sol to parents who had never seen Earth. She had studied Council tactics for 30 years. She understood something that the Council had never grasped. Wars were not won by the biggest fleet. Wars were won by the side that understood what it was fighting for. "The Council fights to control," she told her commanders. "They want to force the galaxy to obey. We fight to free. We want to show the galaxy it has a choice. That is why we will win." Species began to defect. The Morthaking and Tazari sent ships to join the Dominion fleet. Other outlawed species, hidden for centuries, emerged from their hiding places. Even some Council species began to question whether they were fighting on the right side. On Nexus Prime, panic spread through the Council chambers. The Grand Fleet was stranded in empty Dominion space, its supply lines cut, its communications disrupted. The war they had expected to win in weeks was stretching into months, and they were losing. High Arbiter Veleth watched his empire crumble around him. 800 years of life. Thousands of years of Council history. All of it falling apart because of a species he had dismissed as primitive and violent. He thought about the day he had sentenced humanity to quarantine. He remembered the human admiral standing alone in the great chamber, listening to his fate with quiet dignity. He remembered the fire in that admiral's eyes. Perhaps Vela thought he had made a mistake. 6 months after the war began, Vela sent a message to the human dominion. He requested a meeting. Chancellor Park Soyan received the message aboard the Everward. She was the granddaughter of Admiral Park Do-hyun, who had led humanity's first delegation to the council so many years ago. Her grandmother had told her stories about that day, about the hope they had carried, about the judgment that had crushed that hope. Now Soyan would meet the being who had passed that judgment. History was completing its circle. The meeting took place in neutral space, aboard the Everward itself. Chancellor Soyan brought no guards and no weapons. Only witnesses. High Arbiter Veleth arrived alone. He was ancient beyond imagining, his body kept alive by machines that hummed and clicked beneath his robes. His eyes, once bright, had faded to a dim glow. He looked at the human chancellor. She was young by his standards, strong, confident, everything her grandfather had been and something more. "You asked for this meeting," Soyan said. "Speak." Veleth's voice was barely more than a whisper. "I have come to ask for peace. The council is prepared to negotiate terms of surrender." Soyan studied him. "The council sentenced my species to extinction. You called us monsters. You locked us in a cage and expected us to die quietly. Now you ask for peace?" "Yes." The old arbiter did not look away from her eyes. "I ask for peace." The chancellor reached into her coat and pulled out a single document. It was printed on real paper, an old human tradition for important agreements. "This is the Galactic Compact," she explained, laying it on the table between them. "It is not a surrender document. It is something new." Veleth looked at the document. His ancient eyes moved slowly over the words. "Equal membership for all species. No quarantine. No outlawing. Crimes judged by actions, not by biology. A true union of species, built on cooperation instead of control." Soyan's voice was steady. "This is what the human dominion offers. Not vengeance. Not conquest. A chance to build something better." The old arbiter was silent for a long time. "Why?" he finally asked. "After everything the council did to you. After all the pain we caused. Why offer mercy?" Chancellor Park Soyan thought of her grandfather, standing alone in the council chamber so many years ago. She thought of her grandmother, who had lived her whole life under the shadow of that judgment. She thought of the billions of humans who had built the dominion in the darkness, never forgetting what had been done to them. "Because we are not what you said we were," she answered. "We never were. You called us violent, and yes, we have fought. We have killed. We have done terrible things to each other and to ourselves. But that is not all we are." She leaned forward. "We are also the species that builds. We create beauty in the darkness. We find hope where there is none. We take the broken and make them whole. We forgive those who have hurt us, not because we are weak, but because we are strong enough to choose something better." Soyan tapped the document with her finger. "This is our true nature, High Arbiter. Not the violence you feared. The choice to rise above it. That is what makes us human." Veleth looked at the document for a long moment. Then, slowly, he picked up a writing instrument. "I accept these terms," he said quietly. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, I accept." He signed his name. The war was over. The Treaty of Everward was announced to the galaxy 1 year later. The Galactic Council was dissolved. In its place rose the Galactic Compact, a true union of species built on the principles humanity had written into that simple document. Quarantine worlds were opened. Outlawed species walked free for the first time in centuries. Ancient enemies sat together in council chambers and discovered they had more in common than they had ever imagined. The human dominion did not seek to rule the compact. They did not demand special privileges or positions of power. They simply took their place as one species among many, equal partners in a new galactic civilization. But in every chamber, on every world, one truth was remembered. When the galaxy had tried to bury humanity, they had planted a seed. That seed had grown into something remarkable. Not an empire of conquest, but a sanctuary for the forgotten. Not a force of destruction, but a light in the darkness. Admiral Park Do-hyun had made a promise on the day of humanity's judgment. He had said they would build something in the darkness that would light up the galaxy. His great-granddaughter had kept that promise, and the galaxy would never forget what humanity had taught them, that every species deserves a chance, that mercy is stronger than vengeance, and that the greatest civilizations are built not on the ashes of their enemies, but on the hope of something better. The stars no longer seemed so dark. Humanity had come home,